Hello friends and fellow bibliophiles, and welcome back to Cats and Novel Adventures. In today's video, I want to share with you everything I read in March. I participated in 3 readathons during March: Week of Weird, Round 3, Middle Grade March, as well as March Mystery Madness. And then I did a buddy read, yes, my first one with Alex at Frank Fiction. And I also read a book for the Cozy Cottage Book Club. This was a stellar reading month for me, so my stats look pretty good. I read a total of 10 books and 3 short stories. And as far as ratings, I ended up with 8 5-stars, 1 4-star, and 1 3-star for the books. As far as short stories, I had a 5-star and 2 4-stars. I really enjoyed my reading in March. It was really fun and relaxing. Week of Weird, Round 3 took place during March 17th through the 23rd. It was hosted by my friends Krista at Fiber Artsy and Jason at Jason's Weird Reads. For this round, I chose We Have Always Lived in the Castle by Shirley Jackson. Very excited to get to this book. It was my first Shirley Jackson novel, and it also happens to be one of my 24 books on my 2024 list. I ended up giving it 5 stars. Fantastic book. And I also read 3 short stories: Galaxy Girl and the November Monstrosity by Alexandra Hill, The Toll House by W.W. Jacobs, and In the Hills, The Cities by Clive Barker. I filmed a vlog of my Week of Weird reading adventures, so please check out that video if you want to hear more of my thoughts about these amazingly weird stories. Middle Grade March is a month-long readathon, and it is hosted by some lovely ladies: Krista at Books and Jams, Amanda at On the Middle Shelf, and Katie at Life Between Words. I adore children's literature, and middle grade books are fantastic. And this month, I read 6 books that could count for Middle Grade March. Very, very excited. They all earned 5 stars. So let me tell you why I love them so much. There were 5 reading prompts and a group read for Middle Grade March, and I chose to read the group read, which was The Mona Lisa Vanishes, A Legendary Painter, A Shocking Heist, and the Birth of a Global Celebrity, written by Nicholas Day and illustrated by Brett Hellquist. This is a brilliant middle grade narrative nonfiction. It tells the story of the Mona Lisa and how it became the world's most famous painting after it was stolen in August of 1911. The format and the style of this book makes it easy to digest the biographical information about Leonardo da Vinci, about how the Mona Lisa came about, the theft, as well as the forensic science that was used to recover it. It is a fascinating story with captivating illustrations. There's just so much to love about this book. It's delightful, it's engaging, it's informative, also fast-paced as well as humorous. I mean, there were times that I felt like I was reading a mystery thriller instead of a nonfiction book. I really do think middle schoolers will love it. I think adults would love it just as well. I mean, I did, and I learned a lot from it. And especially if you enjoy art history, I think this one would be a great one for you to read. For the one-word title prompt, I chose a book by one of my favorite middle grade authors who has a lot of heart and humor in his stories, and that was Restart by Gordon Corman. This is the story about Chase Ambrose, who is a popular football player at Hiawassee Middle School. But he also happens to be a horrible bully. He does some despicable things to his classmates, people in the community, as well as even some of his family members. One day he happens to be on his roof, he falls off and hits his head, and he develops amnesia. And then he's got to put the pieces together and figure out who he really is, and he gives him an opportunity at redemption. Like Gordon Corman's other stories, there is heart and humor, but there's also some serious tough topics for middle schoolers in here with bullying being at the forefront. There are well-developed characters. There are multiple POVs. It's just an excellent story. One of my favorite characters is Brendan Espinoza. He brings the humor to this story with all of his YouTube shenanigans. I just think this was a wonderful read, and if you have not read Gordon Korman, I highly recommend you pick up one of his books. For the immigration refugee story prompt, I chose Maisie Chen's Last Chance by Lisa Yee. This also happens to be one of my 24 books on my 2024 list. It is an engaging middle grade historical fiction story blended with contemporary fiction. It is about 12-year-old Maisie Chen, who lives in California, Los Angeles specifically, with her mom, who is a food stylist. One day, Maisie's mom receives a phone call that her father is very ill. So Maisie and her mom pack their bags into their car and take a cross-country trip to Last Chance, Minnesota, where Maisie's mom's going to help take care of her father and help her mom run the Last Chance restaurant. This is a wonderful story. I absolutely loved it. It is well written. There are complex characters. Many of them are likable. Even the supporting characters have layers to them. And Maisie, she is amazing. She just has a sense of justice. She has a willingness to stand up for the truth no matter what the cost. And her relationship with her grandfather, who she calls Opa, is just fantastic. Through their conversations, she learns about her great-great-grandfather, Lucky, and all of the challenges that he had to endure immigrating from China to the United States. Lisa Yee does a terrific job of integrating topics such as racism, immigration, and identity with the importance of connections through family, friendship, and even food. I learned a lot of history reading this story, and I love the way it was presented with a story within a story. Also, there are some additional resources in the back of the book. There's a lovely author's note with some photos. There's a recipe for Oma's cream cheese wontons. I'm gonna have to see if Barry will make me some of those. And there are resources about Chinese Americans. This story is brimming with heart, humor, and history, and it is very touching. I shed quite a few tears throughout this story. I really enjoyed it, and I would love to read some more stories by Lisa Yee. For the animal on the cover prompt, I chose Ralph S. Mouse by Beverly Cleary. This is the third book in the Ralph Mouse series. I absolutely love this series. This is actually a reread for me. I happened to pick this up through Scholastic and thought it would be perfect to read for middle grade March because, of course, it fit the prompt really well. Look at that cute little mouse on the cover. Anyway, Ralph is small, but he has lots of spunk, and he's very smart. That's what the S stands for in his name. He lives at the Mountain View Inn with his mouse family, and he has some human friends because, yes, he can talk to humans, mostly children who happen to be lonely and share some similar interests. But he does have a middle schooler he's friends with at the inn. His name is Ryan. Ryan's mom works at the inn, so they live there. And then his adult friend is Matt, who is an employee of the Mountain View Inn. And they all get along well. They know that he has a little motorcycle that he likes to ride around the inn whenever people aren't around. And one evening, Ralph decides to ride his little motorcycle in the lobby. His cousins are hanging around and they're aggravating him because they want to ride his motorcycle too. It looks so fun, but Ralph doesn't like to share his motorcycle because he doesn't want it to get broken. Well, the next morning, the manager finds a big mess in the lobby, and Matt gets in trouble because the manager doesn't think that Matt cleaned up the lobby, and he now thinks he has a mouse problem because there are little droppings in the lobby along with the other mess. And Ralph is so scared for his friend Matt. He doesn't want him to get fired. So he asks Ryan, please take me to school with you. And so Ryan agrees, and then Ralph has all kinds of adventures at Ryan's school. There's all kinds of little shenanigans that take place as well. But this is a story about friendship, courage, compassion. It really has a lot of heart. My copy has some wonderful illustrations by Paul O. Zielinski, And if you stick around to the end of this video, I'm going to share with you how you can enter a giveaway that I'm doing and can possibly win a copy of Ralph S. Mouse. My next two middle grade books did not fit any of the prompts for middle grade March, but they still count for middle grade March because they're middle grade books, if that makes sense. And the next book was my Cozy Cottage Book Club selection, and that is Mary Poppins by P.L. Travers, illustrated by Julia Sauter. This is the whimsical story about a mysterious nanny that arrives at the Banks home on a gust of the east wind. And she can do all kinds of odd things like sliding up a banister. She can talk to animals, and she can also take care of the Banks children while taking them on all kinds of fantastical adventures. Now, I'll be honest with you, I wasn't sure if I was going to enjoy reading Mary Poppins because compared to the two Disney movies, the one with Julie Andrews and Emily Blunt, she didn't seem as warm and fuzzy as Mary Poppins did in the films. She seemed a little more cold and prickly, so I was like, where is this gonna go? She seemed a little too structured and maybe had some rigid rules, but as the story started unfolding, I realized that under that tough exterior, there was a layer of tenderness. She was strict, but very fair. And there were times where she could be a little harsh and a little vain, but I was like, let me just go with it and see. And I will tell you that Jane and Michael, the two oldest Banks children, they liked her from the very beginning. It took me a little bit longer to warm up to her. But as the story unfolded, it just was pure delight. Very whimsical and charming. All of the chapters have some type of adventure that Mary takes the children on. And they meet some quirky characters, they visit some memorable places, and they even get to take part in some celebrations that are really, really neat. I just ended up loving Mary Poppins by the end of the book. I didn't want to see her go when the west wind came to take her away. One of my favorite chapters is the one where it's about the little twins, the twin babies. They can communicate with each other, and they can also communicate with Mary and the natural world. I just thought it was super sweet. Some of the things that the babies were thinking about. If you've never read the book, I would recommend it. I loved mine. It had some really beautiful illustrations in it. And I did go back and watch the movie with Julie Andrews. We watched it after our book club meeting. And you know what? She was very similar to the Mary Poppins in the book. It's just that she was portrayed by Julie Andrews. And when Julie Andrews is scolding you, she still looks like she's smiling because it's Julie Andrews and she just comes across warm and fuzzy. But she had a lot of the same qualities that our Mary Poppins in the book did. But I'm really curious to check out the rest of the series. I'd love to see how Mary's character develops throughout. And my final middle grade March book is The Bungalow Mystery, the third book in the Nancy Drew series. It did not count for a specific middle grade March prompt, but it did for March Mystery Madness. The mystery begins with Nancy and Helen on vacation. They're on the Twin Lakes in a motorboat, having a great time until an unexpected thunderstorm comes up and causes the waves to get too crazy, and it damages their boat, and then they're nearly drowned. Thankfully, there is a young girl named Laura Pendleton that's on the shore that sees them out there, takes a rowboat out, and saves them. Once they get back to shore and everybody seems safe and introductions are made, Laura tells Nancy that she knows that she is an amateur detective but might need her help in the future. Well, not a lot of time passes and Laura does reach out to Nancy because her newly appointed guardians are acting a bit fishy. And so the mystery really starts to unfold. I'm going to tell you, this book was a lot edgier than the first two. I mean, it starts off with Helen and Nancy about to drown. I was just really shocked that it started off so intensely. And also there's a lot of danger that Nancy finds herself in that just seemed a little edgier in general. But I really enjoyed it. Nancy, of course, is resilient and resourceful, and I just look forward to reading the next book in the series. March Mystery Madness is also a month-long readathon. It was created by Elizabeth at Lizzie Faye Loves Books and Troi Towel at Towel Troi. It was hosted by a bunch of wonderful booktubers, including Stormi at Storm Reads, Tiffany at the Beach Bum Bookworm, Sarah at the Bookish Knitter, Olly at Criminale, among others. Those are just the ones that I could think of off the top of my head. They had a bingo board. I was able to get bingo twice, and that was because one of the books that I read counted for 2 prompts. And as I mentioned, I did read the Nancy Drew book, The Bungalow Mystery, because it counted for 9, the prompt 9, and you could use it any way you wanted to. I got the suggestion from Stormi to use Nancy Drew, meaning 9 letters, make up Nancy Drew. So thank you very much, Stormi, for that suggestion, because then I was able to count it for both March Mystery Madness and Middle Grade March. My next book counted for the prompts, a book that reminds you of Janelle, as well as for British mystery, and I chose The ABC Murders by Agatha Christie. And the reason I chose this particular Agatha Christie is because it is part of my Year of Christie 2.0. So I picked out of my Year of Christie jar, and this was recommended to me by my friend Amy at Amityville Library. This happens to be the 13th book in the Hercule Poirot series, and it has Poirot teaming up with Arthur Hastings and Chief Inspector Japp. In this mystery, Arthur Hastings visits Poirot in London. After he arrives, Poirot shows him an ominous letter he received by somebody calling themselves ABC. Well, Arthur Hastings thinks it's a hoax. And when he questions Poirot to see if he even asked the police seem the same thing. This is what the letter says. Mr. Hercule Poirot, you fancy yourself, don't you, at solving mysteries that are too difficult for our thick-headed British police. Let us see, Mr. Clever Poirot, just how clever you can be. Perhaps you'll find this nut too hard to crack. Look out for Andover on the 21st of the month. Yours, etc., ABC. Well, Poirot doesn't take the letter seriously because, as Hastings mentioned, it sounds like a hoax. Well, unfortunately, Alice Asher is murdered in her tobacco shop in Andover, and close to her body is an ABC railway guide, which ends up being the calling card of the murderer. Shortly after that murderer, Poirot receives another letter, and the location this time happens to be with the letter B. And it's now time for Poirot to prevent a murder along with his team. Unfortunately, it doesn't happen. And then he receives another letter, and of course the location is the letter C. Doesn't take Poirot very long to figure out that he is dealing with a serial killer. I just love this mystery because it's Hastings and Poirot teaming up together. They love to banter, they work real well together, they balance each other out. Also enjoyed the alliteration. I just thought that was a lot of fun. I myself enjoy using alliteration in my own writing. I think this was a mystery that was more challenging for Poirot because it's pretty much the first time he's dealing with a serial killer, and then the murders are in multiple locations instead of just one isolated spot. I, of course, did not guess the murderer yet again because, you know, Agatha Christie is the queen of red herrings. But maybe one day soon, I'll be able to figure out who the murderer is. I ended up giving this mystery 4 stars. My next mystery counted for the prompt of Dressed to the Nines. It was also recommended to me by Stormi of Storm Reads, and it is The Alienist by Caleb Carr. This is a dark historical murder mystery set in New York City in 1896. It is about some gruesome murders involving young boys that capture the attention of Laszlo Kreisler, a reputed alienist who joins forces with a journalist, a police secretary, and two young police detectives to solve the crime using psychological profiling as well as forensics, which was new to police work back then. Caleb Carr also includes a note in the beginning of the book to explain exactly what an alienist is. And he says, prior to the 20th century, persons suffering from mental illness were thought to be alienated, not only from the rest of society, but from their own true natures. Those experts who studied mental pathologies were therefore known as alienists. Now, even though there are some disturbing murder scenes involving children, there is so much to love about this well-written novel. First of all, I watched the TV series prior to reading this book because I had no idea that the series was based on this book. Normally, I would not read a book after watching a screen adaptation just because they either don't cast the characters very well or it's so totally different from the book that you can't enjoy it. That is not the case. Whoever was the casting director for the TV series did a wonderful job, and it really did add an extra layer of enjoyment reading the book. So why do I love this book so much? Why did I give it 5 stars? Well, because it has a lot of complex characters that I liked. It also has a very atmospheric setting, and it's good pacing. It really reads really quickly, I think. I did not find any lulls in it. There's a lot of twists and turns. Our characters are in peril. I just wanted to keep reading to see what was going to happen. Also, Caleb Carr does a phenomenal job with incorporating historical figures as characters and capturing the time period. I'm telling you, there were moments where I felt like I was transported back in time. I could hear and see the way New York City was back then. He did a really great job to awaken your senses while you were reading the book. Now, of course, some of that could have also been triggered with the fact that I've seen the TV show as well. So it was just, like I said, an extra layer to it. And talking about characters, the 3 main protagonists are fantastic, in my opinion. I like them very, very much, and they have really great chemistry together. So you have Laszlo Kreisler. He is the alienist. He is kind. He's empathetic. He wants change for society and his patients. Then you also have John Schuler Moore. He's the journalist. He is handsome. He's charming. Sometimes he's a bit confused. He's friends with Kreisler, and he's also the narrator of our story. And then let's not forget Sarah Howard. She is the secretary at the New York Police Department, which is huge because she is the first female employee of the New York Police Department. And she is independent. She's also feisty, and she's progressive. And she's known John for quite a while. But we can also not forget the 2 detectives who help them with all of the forensics. Those 2 are twins and they're brothers, and it is Detective Sergeants Marcus Eikenson and Lucius Eikenson, and they are delightful as well. This novel is not going to be everybody's cup of tea. As I mentioned, it is not for the faint of heart. It has some graphic murder scenes that involve children. We found out some disturbing information about the serial killer, and also some other information about other serial killers that the team calls on to find out some information to try to understand the serial killer. Also, there's a lot of violence. There's some body horror. The places that these young boys hang out at, these pubs, are not, upper class, nice places. They're dangerous. It's places that you and I would not want to go visit for sure. So it's like the poorer, poverty-stricken areas of New York City that ended up being very dangerous. But I will tell you there's a lot going on in the background of the novel. We're dealing with topics such as feminism, corruption, mental illness, also trauma that is suffered in childhood and how it impacts individuals as an adult. There's also the treatment of the poor, those in poverty, especially when they're part of a crime, and how it's handled because they're poor, as opposed to if the crime involves somebody that was upper class. So you have all of that going on in the background as well. And with all of that being said, I really did enjoy the novel. I love the TV show, and I would recommend it if this sounds like something that you would like to read. And I am looking forward to reading the next book in the series. I also want to mention that I Could Count We Have Always Lived in the Castle by Shirley Jackson for March Mystery Madness, because there is a mystery in this story and it counts for 9 lives, cat on the cover. Now that's everything that I read for March Mystery Madness, and my last book I want to share is the buddy read I did with my friend Alex at Frank Fiction, and that is Remarkably Bright Creatures by Shelby Van Pelt. This book is a heartfelt novel. It has a little bit of mystery and a little bit of humor in it, but there's also some melancholy undertones that run throughout the novel. It's about an older woman named Tova. She works as a night janitor at the Sowell Bay Aquarium. She's been working there since her husband died, and she's pretty lonely, and she's still grieving the loss of her son, who she assumes has died in a boating accident 30 years ago. And she doesn't know what happened. It's very mysterious, everything surrounding what happened to him. And she's really can't accept what the police and everybody that investigated seems to tell her, that perhaps he had taken his own life. She just does not accept that. Well, she ends up becoming friends with Marcellus, and they enjoy each other's company. And Marcellus is really an interesting character. I loved him the best. I'm just going to say it right now. I just love the fact that this was going to be a story about an octopus. And he thinks that he can help Tova reconcile the past as well as find some peace. So that all sounded wonderful. I thought for sure I was going to be reading this lighthearted story about friendship. Little did I know that that was not going to be the case. So I was very excited to read the novel because it looks great. Wonderful cover, has an octopus in it. And I was going to be buddy reading it with Alex, who was equally as excited as I was. So I go in, start reading the book, and it seems to be good. I'm liking this friendship between Marcellus and Tova. I love, like I said, point of view from an octopus. Even though Tova seems a little cold at times, she's a pleasant enough character. I mean, I get it. I understand it. She's lonely. She's dealing with her grief. She lost her only son. And I also love the character of Ethan. He's this romantic Scot that has a crush on Tova. So for the most part, the characters are pretty likable, and I like the community setting of Sowell Bay and just getting to know what's going on with Marcellus and all his little shenanigans at the aquarium. Well then, out of the blue, comes this insufferable character named Cameron. He ruined the novel for me. And I know that Alex feels the same way because I've seen her review of this and we had a lengthy discussion about it. We both feel like the novel was kind of misleading as far as the marketing. Whoever wrote the synopsis for this, it kind of misled you into thinking it was going to be a lighthearted novel about friendship between this lonely woman and an octopus. And then you get this character, Cameron, come on the scene, and he's funky. I didn't like him. He was a whiny baby, man-child, who had all these ideas of what he was going to do and all this stuff. And I'm telling you, we could have just taken Cameron out of the novel and still arrived at the same place at the end. Still, what happened towards the end could have happened without Cameron, in my opinion. I just didn't like it. It almost kind of felt forced having him in there and like having everything be serendipitous and ending up and lining up. But it was a bummer. The biggest bummer is the fact that Marcellus hardly had any book time. Cameron had more book time than Marcellus did, and that really bummed me out. So I was disappointed. I guess I was disappointed because I went in with these high expectations, and we all know that when you have some high expectations, sometimes you run that risk of disappointment, and that happened with this book for sure. So this was a case where when you judge a book by its cover, like the cover looks beautiful, but the story didn't meet what was in between the cover. Okay, enough about that. I ended up giving it 3 stars. Like I said, there were parts of the novel that I really embraced, and then there was parts of the novel, Cameron, that I could not embrace. It's giveaway time, and I'm ready to give away a few copies of Ralph S. Mouse by Beverly Cleary. All you need to do to enter the giveaway is leave me a comment below that says, enter me into the giveaway. Also, leave me a fun fact about mice. Those are the 2 things that you need to put in the comments if you want to be included in the giveaway. I will choose winners on my live sprints on Wednesday, May the 22nd. I'm going to put all the names into a picker wheel so everybody can see when I spin it who the winners are. You don't need to be there in order to win. I will contact you if you're not there through the comment section of this video. The giveaway is going to end an hour before I go on sprint, so about 2:30 p.m. Central Time. So that's all the details. If you have any questions, please feel free to email me or leave a comment below. And good luck to everyone who wants to enter in this giveaway. Well, everyone, that is a wrap on everything I read during the month of March. What about you? Did you participate in March Mystery Madness or Middle Grade March? Did you have any favorites that you could share with me? Also, did you happen to read any of the books that I read during March? What were your thoughts about them? Let me know in the comments below. Also, I will leave details about the giveaway in the description box below. And as always, I appreciate you stopping by. I thank you for watching. And until our paths cross again, stay amazing and be adventurous.